The RAIN Alliance is a member organization. They support the members of the particular type of RFID. It's a UHF passive tag, Gen 2, which is a specific variety of tag. And that is the tag that was adopted by the tire industry. And so the RAIN Alliance supports its members, which are represented by tire companies, for example, in the end user space, but also chip manufacturers, tag manufacturers, reader manufacturers, solutions providers, integrators, to bring all of the technology together. And the RAIN Alliance is a member-based organization, as I said, that supports the particular type of technology. And it's a little like the NFC forum, the Near Field Communication Forum. Near Field Communication being like Google Pay or Apple Pay. Also, there's a Wi-Fi Alliance, of course, supporting the Wi-Fi members. And there is the Bluetooth Special Interest Group. And so these associations are there to really advocate for their technology. The RAIN Alliance has been in place for 10 years. It's celebrating its 10th anniversary. And it's only been that the tire manufacturers in the tire industry have had a work group since about 2020. And the reason why RAIN Alliance benefits the tire manufacturers is because it brings together tire ecosystem and the RFID, the RAIN ecosystem. Before, many of the experts participated in ISO, and ISO and other groups have a benefit of producing global standards. But what ISO doesn't do is develop educational materials that support adoption. It really is more technical. And what the RAIN Alliance does is it advocates for those things by training, by education, by guidelines and white papers. It really allows us to publish information that supports adoption of this technology. So it's RFID, but RFID is a very broad term. And so there's one particular type of technology, which is a passive UHF, ultra high frequency tag. And that is the type of tag that was selected by the tire industry through ISO. Because there are multiple ways of communicating through wireless. And RFID has different spectrums that they operate, different frequencies. And this particular type of UHF, ultra high frequency, has the ability to be able to be read from a certain distance at a certain range, and it's superior than different frequencies. So low frequency, high frequency, and then in this space it's ultra high frequency. So it meets the particular requirements not only of the tire manufacturers, but many other vehicle components are also using the same ultra high frequency, which we know today as the RAIN. Well, in the RAIN membership, there are several hundred, but there are non-members who also participate in the tire work group. And so we have many tire manufacturers across the globe who may not be members of the RAIN Alliance, but who participate together. So it's one of the opportunities that we have within the tire work group. So it's not a new subject. RFID in tires has been discussed since the early 2000s. And it was used in several use cases around competition or racing, is an example. But it's been slow to have broad industry adoption by the tire manufacturers. And where we're starting to see that change, of course, since the ISO standards were produced with their development beginning in 2016, and their publishing of the 4 standards in 2020, that's when we created the work group. And since then, we're really starting to see the adoption pick up. We're starting to see more tire manufacturers have public commitments to having embedded tags in their tires. And we're starting to see much more of the ecosystem develop use cases. So that's really where you're starting to see increases in adoption. So first you have to get to an agreement on what the percentage of tires are that are produced per year. And that number varies. It varies because it depends on which market and how they're counting their tires. But I would say it's probably low, but I don't have an exact number. Okay. We could probably provide that information, but a lot of the tire manufacturers don't publish the details because there's some concern about some competitive advantage. So only a few tire manufacturers have had public statements and public commitments, and only a few tire manufacturers have actually stated the number of tagged tires that they've produced. So it's a very difficult number to determine. Absolutely. One of the drivers in, where the RAIN RFID plays a particular role and has a benefit, because there are other ways to identify a tire. Of course, you're familiar with the tire identification number that's on the sidewall. That's one means of identifying a tire. It's in several formats, but in the US we have a 13-digit character, but it is only a batch or a lot number. There are other ways to identify tires that exist. They can use barcodes, they can use QR codes, but because those require line of sight, because you can't scan many tires at the same time, that's where RAIN really offers advantages. And where RAIN especially offers an advantage is if it's embedded, it will last through the duration of the full life of the tire. And so when you think about sustainability or regulations such as ESPR, the Eco Design for Sustainable Regulations, or what we know of out of Europe as referred to as the Digital Product Passport, those really require traceability to the tire's end of life. And that, I think, is what RAIN does over all of the other types of data carriers. Exactly, and that works. That's where there is an attachment method that exists under ISO. So the RFID can be put into an inlay, and it can be attached to a label on a tire. It can also be attached as a patch on the sidewall and bonded, much like a repair. But where it's embedded is where it's special, because then it can't be removed, it can't be falsified, it can't be tampered with. You would destroy the tire. And so when you think about inventory and logistics, or up to manufacturing operations, a stakeholder might determine that they can achieve a return on investment only through a labeled RFID. And that's okay, that's not wrong. But you have to think of all the other potential use cases that exist where they would also benefit. So that's why we support the embedded tag, because not only do they support logistics and inventory, but they additionally support the ability to be able to trace the tire to its end of life. And that would prevent us from having the need to put a label and an embedded tag. So I think for sustainability and for recycling and for the overall benefit, we would not want to have two tags. So if we're going to have a tag, having one that lasts through its end of life is preferred. So that would be up to the individual tire manufacturer and their vertical supply chain. And so they would wish for their suppliers, and it could be for reasons for sustainability, but it could also be for reasons of inventory management to require traceability of the items that are used in their production process. But that's more of a closed loop. So you don't have to have an open standard, and you don't have to have broad industry adoption if it's one vertical in one particular from one particular tire manufacturer. But if they can do that, and they can require it from their suppliers, and then it can be also fed into the finished product of the tire, then you can match it through its life cycle. But the supply of raw materials could use a different RAIN tag or a different coding scheme that's not the same as the one that's used for the tire. That's completely up to the vertical industry that's there. But for sure, RAIN would offer advantages there as well. Well, for sure, tire manufacturers are starting to increase their adoption. You're seeing more public commitments. You're seeing more activity. The GDSO, the Global Data Service Organization, is a big part of that. They have now at least 10 members of the tire manufacturers who are committing to standardized data that is associated to the tag on the tire. So the tag on the tire has very, very little information. It's only a birth certificate. It only says this is who I am. There's no other information about it. It's not until you access the tire manufacturer's data through the GDSO, which is done by way of the standardized data on the tag. Then when the GDSO accesses that information, it's also in a standardized format that has been agreed to by the manufacturers. And so as more tire manufacturers are committing to that approach of a tag on a tire, which is the physical item, and then data in the cloud, which is the virtual information, then you can connect the two together. And that, I think, is where you're starting to see more use cases and more adoption. And so what it will take, I think, for the market to increase and for more tires to be tagged is for more momentum and more commitments to be made. And we're starting to see that, especially over the last 1 to 2 years. Well, I mean, the RAIN Alliance serves its members, and the members include tire manufacturers, but also RFID readers and tag inlay. And I think what RAIN's success would be is to grow. You know, there are more than 30 billion tags produced per year that are in this category of RAIN. And it's a relatively small number when you think about tires. And it's even a small number across all of automotive, because remember, it's not just tires that are tagged across a vehicle. And I think what RAIN would consider a success is when we start to see tire adoption and we start to see more and more millions of tires tagged per year. There's not a number, maybe it won't be 100, maybe it won't even be 90%. We think that there could be some cases where tire tagging might not be a cost benefit, but we think for the majority of tires that there's a certain benefit. And I think the RAIN wins and their success is the same shared success by its members. So, you know, it's a really good question. At this Tyre Technology Expo, one of the benefits is it brings RAIN Alliance to the full market. And we've had a number of global tire manufacturers who might be in that tier 2 or tier 3 category, and they've expressed interest on becoming RAIN members. And I can think that that can only be a signal of the possibility of them tagging their tires. But people often ask, will it be 100% of tires? And a simple way they ask that question is, will the tire identification number be removed from the sidewall? And the short answer is, we're always going to have tire identification in the current form until there's 100%. And so I think for many years, you probably will see both. And unless it's beneficial for tier 2 and tier 3 tire manufacturers, you might continue to see a marking on the sidewall, which has a batch or a lot numbering system, as well as an embedded RFID tag, which opens up much more possibilities. And those two will have to coexist. So only time will tell really on the future. Well, the mission of the RAIN Alliance is to increase adoption. They do that through meetings, through conferences, through education, through training. The Tires Masterclass, which we've done a version of this week, as well as was in Yokohama and in Hanover here last year. We'll see that in Taiwan at the RAIN Alliance Summit in May. That's really getting the know-how into the marketplace. So one way that RAIN supports its members is by organizing its members, some of which are competitors. This is the wonderful part. The competitors come together to solve this problem, and they work together and they collaborate because they know that only in working together can we really boost that adoption. So that's a simple example of what the RAIN Alliance can do. And in the case of tires, it happens to be that we're one end user category, but the RAIN has many members. And it includes healthcare, retail, there's a category for smart mobility, which is focusing on vehicle identification beyond tires. So you can think of toll road applications or others. So they're all concentrating on the same things. And what the RAIN Alliance does is it brings these end user categories together, and it works with the other types of work groups, which include technical, marketing, a developers work group, and a sustainability work group. So sustainability of the tag, as well as identifying use cases for sustainability, are part of the RAIN Alliance mission. And we, within the tire work group, not only do our work, but we collaborate with other work groups to really strengthen each other. So I think we're starting to see the challenges, and they're starting to be overcome. One challenge is it's not about the tire and it's not about the tag. When you see here, there's a RAIN stack that shows an item, a tag, and a reader. And we think about those three things have to come together for the unique item identifier to be read. But it's not about those three things. There's software and there's network. But what we're starting to see is tire assembly units, tire mounting and servicing units, tire tooling. So the equipment that's actually used in the shops that are servicing our tires, they're now adopting RAIN. So when we think of a reader, we think of a handheld reader that serves no purpose other than to read the tag. Now what we're starting to see is a device that tells the pressure of the tire through a TPMS monitoring capability, maybe using optical to read the sidewall of the tire to scan for depth, as well as the ability to be able to read the tag. And so what we're starting to see is those providers are now leveraging RAIN technology. They're working with the RAIN members who are integrating readers into the existing equipment. And so that's, I think, the bridge. It's not about the tire, it's not about the tag, it's not about the reader, it's about the equipment that the service providers use every day. How does a retreader retread its tires? They don't need to have a dedicated tool, perhaps. Maybe what they need to do is to integrate the RFID and the RAIN technology inside their tooling. And that's the obstacle that we're starting to see overcome, especially in the last 12 months.